person, and Alan. Welcome to our session together with International Atomic Energy Agency and World Meteorological Organization. It's called From Ice to Water, the downstream effect of the glacier retreat. So we would like to focus this. I'm Yulia Ristamna from International Atomic Energy Agency, and we would like to focus this session more on the downstream effect. Yesterday, we heard more about how Glacier is retreating. And we have some knowledge, but mostly this knowledge related to places where we have observation, where we can understand what is happening. There are many different places. We don't have really very good monitoring network. We don't have observation network, and we don't know how Glacier retreating. In this aspect, I would like to introduce the first our panel, and also to give more information about how Glacier retreated, our specialist. So together with us today, it's Professor Stefan Uhlin Group, Director on Water and Cryosphere from World Meteorological Organization, Dr. Johannes Kuhlmann, Director on the Partnership in Delft Institute for Water Education, Martin Krause, Director of Technical Cooperation Department, International Atomic Energy Agency, Dr. David Rawlinson, glaciologist from the Carnegie Mellon University in the United States, and Mr. Kamron Riziev, Head of International Department of the Agency for Meteorology in Tajikistan. So to start this event, I would like to invite Dr. David Rawlinson to give us how Glacier retreating, to continue our discussion first on the downstream effect. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the panel as well. I'm looking forward to the discussion that we'll have. I've been asked just to give a very quick overview of the impacts associated with the glaciers as they retreat. And so we can dive right in. Maybe. There we go. So we know that glaciers are responding to climate change very well. This is an example from Los Glaciares National Park in Argentina. You can see it on the screen as well for the panelists, just an FYI. You can see the remarkable difference between 1941 here and 2016. The glaciers both thinned as well as the glaciers retreated substantially. Here's an example of Imja Glacier in Nepal between 1955 and 2007. Again, the glacier has thinned as it retreats. It's also formed a proglacial lake as well. And the negative impacts associated with this glacier retreat are really quite diverse and also severe. So one of the ones that receives the biggest, most attention is sea level rise. The glaciers contribute roughly 20% of the global mean sea level. We also have ecosystems and culture. There are a variety of ecosystems and biology that is downstream of these glaciers that is fed by this glacier runoff. That's absolutely critical for those systems. Glacier outburst floods can be a very big hazard, especially for downstream communities located nearby. Glacier instabilities, rockfalls, avalanches are becoming more frequent, especially with permafrost degradation as well from the surrounding slopes. And then water resources, which is a big thing that we're here to discuss today as well, can be very important for those downstream communities. So just to give a sense of the water resources in a little bit more detail, this is a graphic that came out of a study about 5 years ago that involved about 30 different international authors. And what they did was they developed this water tower index. And this water tower index was essentially a combination of the glacier supply as well as the downstream demands. And so the blue colors show you areas where the glaciers are supplying a lot of water, and it's also very important for the downstream communities. The yellowish colors, the greenish colors are showing you where there's either less glacier runoff, so less being produced, or there's lower demand. You can see Central Asia really sticks out as an area of the world where you have those dark blue colors, where the glacier runoff produces a lot of water, as well as you have very substantial demands downstream. You also have other areas from around the world where you see those dark blue colors as well. So it's not just in high mountain Asia, but it is all around the world. As we look at the glacier's contribution to those water resources in a little bit more detail, we can start to think about a normal year. So here what you're seeing is the combination of the component of precipitation, snowmelt, and glacier runoff, right? That is what the downstream communities experience. You can see here that in a typical year, even in some of the biggest basins where there's the greatest component of glaciers in those two blue colors, it's roughly a quarter, right? Most of this is actually driven by precipitation. However, when we get to times of droughts, you can start to see that that blue fraction really takes over. So the glacier resources are important even in normal years, but they become especially important in times of droughts, especially in those drier regions as well. And this is true for other regions too. I'm just showing here an example of high mountain Asia, but this is another example of Santiago in Chile with their mega drought that they've been experiencing since 2010. As we think about how the glaciers are going to look like in the future, we know that we're losing the glaciers. We can project this, we can estimate this. We can also estimate how the water resources are going to vary. We can think of the glaciers as a natural reservoir. When we start to melt the glaciers, we're essentially diminishing that reservoir, meaning we're releasing water down glacier to downstream. What that means is we enter this period that we refer to as peak water, where we actually have more water than we do under a steady state condition. But after a while, we start to lose our glacier such that the reservoir becomes empty, and eventually we start to have less and less water resources. I'm going to show the same thing here on a seasonal time scale because the glacier runoff in green is really important seasonally during the summer and the end of summer. And so you can see here that during peak water, we have a big spike in that glacier melt component, even if the snow melt remains the same. But once we go beyond that peak water, we start to have greatly diminished water resources. And that peak water, it's heavily dependent on the watershed region where you are, as well as the emission scenario that we have. So our work here at COP can have a big impact as to what the future water resources are going to look like. I just highlight here that peak water in high mountain Asia is expected typically around 2050. In some regions where you see those reddish colors, we've already passed peak water. And so we already have to plan for less and less glacier water. And I will get into some wonderful discussions about that moving forward.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
According to what you presented us, generally we don't have optimistic scenario. Do we have some places in the world what Glacier is building still? We have building of Glacier during the winter period, or it's growing the mass of Glacier? Or it's only the case that what we are only losing Glacier?
Right now we're in a state where glaciers all over the world are being lost. Between 2000 and 2019, there was a region in the Karakoram that we refer to as the Karakoram anomaly. Scientists are still trying to figure out why glaciers in those regions had essentially neutral, no elevation thinning. In some places there was slight growth. It's possible it's natural variability associated with the westerlies. It's also possible that irrigation nearby might have given more evapotranspiration. There are a couple theories, but that's really the only area.
But we have it.
It exists, but more recently, that area has also started to show a lot more thinning and mass loss. So from 2000 to 2019, it was good, but now it's not looking so good.
I think I can stay here because it will be easier to hear me. And so I would like to now ask you, Stefan.
Can they hear you?
I'm sorry.
They can't hear you.
Because, yes, this father can... Okay. Stefan, you are working in an international organization. What type of program, scientific program, educational program, collaborative program WM has to support the glacier studies, for example, to support studies downstream of the glaciers melting?
Well, no, thanks for inviting me. Also, I think this was really interesting. Also, the framing was super interesting, and there's a number of programs. And if you talk about glaciers downstream, he showed that it's about 1.9 billion or so on Walter Zimmercell paper. So it's a third at that time, a third of the population is depending directly on glaciers. So every hydrology program downstream of the big mountains is kind of related to that. So I could mention all of them, but probably you are referring more to really high mountain glaciers. What maybe one thing I want to share with you, we published since the third version now, the annual state of global water resources. So we look at the kind of a hydrological yearbook of the whole world, and we assess the water resources. We do it as much as we can based on measurements, but in many parts of the world, data is not available. So therefore, we use the 10 best operational available hydrological models, which are updated for the year, and in our ensemble, we bring them together and have some average assessment of the state of the water resources. And these are really the top models from NASA and China and Japan and Germany and a couple of other countries. So, yeah, and then it's quite a robust estimate. What we learned there, that's for the stream flow, and we see stream flow dynamics changing. For instance, last year was interesting. It was the last 18 months, every month was yet another temperature record. So it was as high as never before. And this kind of heat, this energy is translating into also rapid glacier melt. And so we saw that from a stream flow, almost half of the planet was below normal stream flow conditions. And also the rapid snow and ice melt and glacier melt is also dramatic. I mean, everybody, I think Matthias Husi got a lot of press cover with his pictures. I think they are probably illustrated here also somewhere. And only the Swiss Alps, which are probably one of the best monitored glaciers we have, it is roughly 10% was of the mass in 2 years was lost. So it was really dramatic. In terms of hydrological, that was your question, hydrological programs is we are supporting countries either with our normative work to properly monitor data management, data storage, archiving, but also doing products and services, so assessing water resources and doing that in a consistent way. One program which I would like to mention, which actually started my predecessor sitting next to me here, this is so-called Hydro SOS, that's the hydrological status and outlook system, where basically on a given time you try to assess what is the water resources now, and then you do on a seasonal to sub-seasonal time scale make predictions of how will the water resources change over time. And in catchments that are dominated by snow and ice melt, obviously seasonal, sub-seasonal predictions are absolutely critical. Furthermore, WMO has a number of programs related to supporting the monitoring, data exchange, and so I think that's I could expand on that. And maybe in terms of research, what I found exciting, when we talk about Cryosphere, it's often very as a strong monitoring research angle. I'm not saying that providing services out of this is not important, but the focus is often on data monitoring as well as research. There's exciting new developments in many things, but you're asking about the downstream hydrology. There's a new program coming from the World Climate Research Program, and there's one sub-program called GVEX, Global Water Energy Experiment, and it's GPEX. It's for the next 10 years to get the global precipitation right. And particularly in high mountain regions, this is super challenging. On the other hand, there will be a year of international year of precipitation. This is working towards, and that really put a lot of emphasis in better monitoring and assessing precipitation. Because a lot of our hydrological models, particularly in high mountain regions where our rain gauges are somewhere in the wells and not necessarily where most of the rain is falling in. And the same is true for climatic water balances of glaciers and so on. The input is very, very difficult. So really putting a lot of emphasis on better input data is very interesting. So this GPEX program will start in January, will be 10 years. The International Year of Precipitation is part of it, but it's also an engagement opportunities because it needs the community working in high mountain and in polar regions, helping us to get this better.
As I understand, you have much more dense, intensive observation network downstream than upstream, yes? Because it's one of the challenges to establish upstream observation. And David, just here you mentioned about this carbon phenomena, and I heard about that very strange way. So there is a measurement of people who is going with ships, like last 200 years. Local people, they're going to ship in certain periods, and they put in the stones and marks about the glacier evolution. And this is one they also hope. Do you have a WMO if there is some kind of integration with indigenous or local studies to study or to get more data about glacier retreat and of glacier expansion?
No, it's not that the WMO as an organization has its troops which we send out and measure. Now we wish we could, but doesn't work like this, but it's more the national hydrometeorological services and or whoever's in charge in the different countries, and we facilitate their work to normative work that we have the proper standards and the measurements are comparable and properly done, and then through supporting network design, supporting data exchange, data management, and formatting and these type of things, but also in a consistent way to generate products and services through modeling to support and do that. So it's kind of, we do the whole chain of that, but it's more our effort is always to support countries in their ability to do it themselves. It has a lot to do with capacity building, obviously.
Probably also with data, because sometimes people collected different type of data in different languages. We are trying to probably have some general data information centers.
Yeah, otherwise you compare apples and bananas, and it's very difficult to make any time series analysis out of that. The normative work and standardization type of work is very important.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask Martin, what current agency, International Atomic Energy Agency initiative in the field of glacier melt studies, in the field of the downstream effect, because we have our tool isotope hydrology, but we apply and transfer it to our counterparts. How it relates to the program in mountain systems?
Yeah. So for some, it is very weird that the International Atomic Energy Agency is actually engaged in Cryosphere and Glacier type of work, because you would not normally associate the International Atomic Energy Agency with such type of work, because we are well known, for being the nuclear watchdog and things like that. But here's a well-kept secret. We have been working for more than a decade in exactly this space. And what is the space? The space is to help national met services, hydromet services, as you just explained, our colleague from WMO, to help them to use isotopic hydrology techniques and other nuclear-derived techniques to better understand glaciers, better understand the isotopic and hydrology system that is downstream from the glaciers. And I will give you one example what isotopic techniques actually can do. When you have the glacier and then you have a river, running off and feeding from that glacier, and if you are a downstream community living in a valley in Nepal or in Peru, you want to know how much of that river water that is used for irrigation or as drinking water, as fresh water, how much of that water that is coming down from the river is actually glacier runoff water, and how much is from the normal surface runoff or precipitation. Why is that important? Because if you know the percentage, you can then also know if you will have a problem in a 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years when the glacier is shrinking or disappearing, right? So this is very crucial. Now with the isotopic technique, you can fingerprint each water drop. So you can take a sample from the river, and you would know if this river is fed by only 5% or 50% or 90% from the glacier. And that is so important, this information, to do a proper planning for your agricultural survival, if you are, depending on agriculture, and many communities actually do in these high mountain areas. So that is what isotopic techniques actually can contribute. At the IAEA, we have a technical cooperation program. We are working in more than 150 countries on cryosphere-related and glacier-related work. We are working in the Himalayas and in the Andes, in Slovakia, in Georgia. We're working in Tajikistan with our colleagues here to build their capacity to do training on how to use isotopic techniques to supplement, of course, other conventional methodologies that are also already in place. So we have capacity building programs, we have scholarships, we have networking activities to connect the different countries to each other. So that is kind of our role in this space.
Very much. As the agency, I know what equipment to analyze isotopes is not standard equipment. How agency, how your technical cooperation department supporting the people who would like to start implementation isotope hydrology to study glacier melt, the downstream effect? What the steps they should do? What the type of program exists?
Yeah. So currently we have an inter-regional program. That is a program that is open basically to all countries that have a stake, let's say, in the Cryosphere, Glacier, high mountain topic. It's open to all those countries, and they can, approach us directly to work with the technical cooperation program. They can sign up to be part of such a program, and what they will receive in return is access to capacity building, to scholarship and training programs, to networking opportunities, to technical seminars, and so on and so forth. Even the procurement of equipment, as you have mentioned, some of the equipment is highly sophisticated, maybe expensive, not so easy to procure in certain countries. So the procurement of such equipment also can be done through our program. So it's a grant-based program, and it is open basically to all countries who want to join it.
Thank you very much. I would like now to continue with your one. You talk here about science. We talk about hydrometer measurements, but it's still more scientific. So the percentage of population involved is very low. From based on your experience, because downstream we have not only scientists, but also and upstream we have community. Based on your experience, what kind of educational steps should be done also to involve people, local society to this problem and to improve the situation? Do we have this chance to improve the situation actually? With the help of education, with the help of development of capacities among non-specialists?
Yeah, thanks, Julia, for your question. I think there are two things. One is a general awareness type thing, and we can talk about this in a minute. And the other is that where we have already all the science knowledge and then where, say, all the stuff that IAEA and WMO and all the other people are trying to really implement globally, where we have that already. And one such place is Germany. I work now in Germany, and I'm German. I can speak about this without insulting anybody. We knew already 10 years ago that we would have an impact, and you showed it also on your slide. The Rhine River is Germany's lifeline in terms of bulk goods supply. We need this river for producing energy, and there's now a debate on taking water from there to irrigate. So first, regional administrative units are giving out irrigation permits. That's within their mandate, but it's not linked to the overall management strategy for the water resource in the river that we should have. So we knew about this, and we commissioned a study. So we got the science base. That was already 10 years ago, and we know now that the impact until 2070 will be that in the low flow periods in the fall, we will have 25% less flow in the river. And that's because of the cryosphere largely. So it's not only glacier melt, it's a lot of snow dynamics in Germany. But we know that, and we know that 10 centimeters of water level is roughly 200 million euro in transport capacity on this river, let alone energy and other relations, only transport. So we knew that already 8 years ago. We did nothing because there was no educated institutional procedure to do anything. Then some years ago, the business came when we had a very severe drought event in the fall and said, okay, hey, we need supplies for our factories. What do you do about the security for our supplies? Business operations, it's a service level question, and it means money. And then our transport ministry said, okay, well, we are going to secure a minimum service or a maximum service level and a minimum river stretch. And we are now researching and implementing this. But basically, we are trying to create an additional riverbed within the riverbed that also works in the dry period, which is an answer to this particular question, but it's not an answer to what is the overall reaction of the river system to the change in flow dynamics. Why am I giving this example? We have all the science, we have all the institutional capacity, we have all the money to implement this, and yet we are lacking the educational elements that we need to give to the different agencies or authorities or networks of policy people who discuss with private sector or farmers or associations about what needs to be done. So we have everything, but it's in the wrong place. I think one very big aspect for me is how can we, what we are doing in IAEA, for example, in Delft, is we are designing short courses exactly to have the awareness at the right place. But that's not a very attractive topic to get funding for. And the government agency ticks off their bureaucratic mandate and don't think about the one next left and next right. So what we need is education pieces that confront people that are not in their primary responsibility there for water management, but for other topics. We need to have this education in the different parts of the value chain or externalities system of the services and the value generation of what it means for people, social, culture. That is for me the main. We have that also in many good universities in the IAG. We have no system now that goes through the international system or so to make sure that we reach the right people. So that is for me number one. Reach people who are affected but not primarily responsible with a basic knowledge about what it means. Germany, no, our administration is not outside the transport, is not aware of this problem in the right.
So I believe generally if it's a problem to find funds for this type of education, I think even more problematic to find funds for the school education or to support and to give more evidence about that. For example, yeah.
It's the first topic I mentioned, and then I never talked about this, but we also need more information generally for the people.
Yeah.
In the end, those are the voters in our country who will decide which policy they want to vote for. And at the moment, we see in Europe very concerning developments in how people decide for policies. So we need to counter them with information that is not negative or alarmist, but with an information that says, here's an issue, but here are your 5 possibilities how you can tackle that in a positive way. And then the people will want to engage, and then the people will want to spend money on the stuff, and they will create something together, which at the moment is not the spirit in many countries around this world.
Because, for example, my son, he's in Austrian school, and they have field trips to study and understand glacier problems. Because in Austria, we have glaciers and we have this problem. But do we need actually to expand education towards all society? If it's not relevant, do you have glacier or you don't have glacier? You should be more inclusive in this subject. For example, if you go in art gallery, you have glacier drawing, but soon maybe it will be less and less.
Now, I think today, my children get their education when they know about the problem, they go online and they find stuff. So it's not that schools are, in many countries, schools are one element that is also lagging behind a lot in what education means today. So I think what we need is to make the people aware of these facts and guide them to how they can make the relation between the different impacts of cryosphere or any other water-related topic. And yes, it's good to have it in the school curriculum, but it's even more important that the people take it up amongst themselves in their peer groups or so to discuss what they can do about it.
So we need to increase the inclusivity of all levels of the society and focusing not only on negative, as I understand properly, not only focusing on negative aspects like it's retreating, but also what we can do, what I can do, what my mother can do, my father can do, what we can do to reduce this impact, yes?
You see this in the climate movement. The young people are now all frustrated, and here there's only old men. Sorry for the insult.
Like us here, no?
But,
Some of us.
but yeah, they are frustrated because they believe they cannot change it anymore. And if we continue, it's easy to talk about what's wrong, but it's better to say we can do this and this and this about it.
Thank you very
So
much.
the Cassandras are the model of yesterday. We should give the people opportunity.
I was asking about the school kids because they're still more optimistic always.
Yeah.
I can see that. Thank you very much. So I would like now to give our next question to Cameron. And because you're from Tajikistan, and Tajikistan is one of the leaders of the next year in terms of the year of the glacier preservation. Yes? So please, can you give us more about situation in Tajikistan? Maybe you can cover different aspects, educational, partnership development, and the pathway towards this glacier preservation year.
Thank you so much, and thanks again for inviting me to this very important event. As you know, Tajikistan is one of the champion countries in the field of water resources and glaciers. And you know, 2022 adopted by UN General Assembly for the 22 next year glacier preparation. So I think it's one of the ways, not for Tajikistan, but it's for entire world to protection of the glaciers. So as you know, also Tajikistan is located in the heart of Central Asia, and it is the main country who provides the 60% of water resources to the entire region of Central Asia. And so this glacier is nothing from Tajikistan. So in a period of high temperatures, Tajikistan can turn into floods. So this will harm the development of economy and infrastructure and destroy half of the youth people. The downstream countries such as Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, so these countries are fully provided with the water, but they don't suffer as much as Tajikistan. So in this regard, the upcoming financial year glacier preservation edition, the next year which we will have on May, I think it will be a good Tajikistan can present a unique opportunity to spotlight this question is concerned. So, by convening global scientists, policymakers, and environmental organizations, the conference can foster collaborative approach to devise innovative strategies and the solution to mitigate glacier loss. So, one of another, we also have a good, WM is also one of the main partners with Tajikistan, as we all have main, direction. So based on the international, training, we every month, almost 3 months, there were training, technical training, or high-level training. So this is one of the good when you do the stuff of our Tajikistan stuff in the field of hydrology, glaciers, transfer, instrument value chain program. And one of other, the best news we had 2 days before, it was the signing between Tajik Hydromet and agency, atomic agency. It is one of the best progress, especially in the field of glacier preservation. So we can deal together, as you mentioned very well about. You also have some programs with training. You also have scholarship programs. So it's one of the great opportunity for Tajikistan's, our agency staff to increase, to enhance the knowledge in the field of isotope. Isotope is also very important for us because will be one of the first steps in Tajik to learn about it. Otherwise, you also have you brought, I think, a sort of some the equipment is in the academic side of Tajikistan. But I hope in the future we could have a good cooperation in this field. So, Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about preparation to the next year? Do you have some events, some conferences you're planning next year in Tajikistan for the year of glacier preservation?
Yes, as you know, we have we also have a good cooperation with World Bank Group, with ADB, Asian Development Bank, and with Caritas, the name of this German fund organization. GIZ, yes. So this organization, there are a lot of organizations, but I can bring examples of this organization. We have memorandum of understanding. We have projects in other areas in the field of hydrology. So based on this project, we also have in the next step we will organize joint assignments and programs. So about the preparation of the conference, we plan to send an official letter from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and from the Committee for Environmental Protection to the head of the state government and organization for the upcoming future presentation. So we plan. We will send all official letters in the middle of December. There will be include the agenda, the concept notes. So there will be every work happening in the conference. We will share on the concept notes in the middle of December. So I think another question was about the outcome of international glacier preservation. What will be the next in the talk of Brazil? But as we didn't mention, but in that I will.
Yes, I wanted to ask you right now after what you discussed.
Oh, sorry for that.
You would like to see
the preparation is going well. So the main city committee in Tajikistan is the Prime Minister, who is working with this work for preparation of the conference. So now, as I mentioned, we deal with the concept note, which we do soon. So about these events expected to influence the next COP30 in Brazil. In COP30 in Brazil, Tajikistan has opportunity to amplify the message of glacier preservation by pressing a unite the front of countries grappling with the similar issues. So the outcome from the Dushanbe Conference can serve as a driving force for collective action, urging participant nations to acknowledge the glacier retreat as a global crisis that transcends borders. So Tajikistan can prepare compelling statement outlining shared challenge and innovative solutions identified during the conference, advocating for the concerned international response to the ecological threat posed by melting glaciers. So by highlighting the interconnectedness of water resources in Central Asia, Tajikistan can galvanize the support for effective policy funding to combat climate change impacts, to supporting glacier preservation to the forefront of global climate agenda.
Thank you very much. So we have last 20 minutes for our panel, and I would like to ask you some questions. Maybe some of you will reply. The specialist in this area more than me, definitely. But so one of the questions: what collaborative efforts we need to do now to be prepared for the transition from ice to water? What type of collaboration? If someone would like to reply this question, what we need to enhance? What we are lacking now?
I can start. It's, and then this will not be the full truth, but I think everybody knows about ecosystem services now, but nobody knows about cryosystem services. So the people don't know what their service benefit from the cryosphere is. And if you want to create a community or so, you have to first show that. And then you can engage on the storage or the cooling or the water availability or the biodiversity or the carbon sequestration. You know, there are so many related services that people get from flow conditions that come from Cryosphere, but we don't have anywhere, not in WMO, not in the Cryosphere Watch is a super good initiative, and WMO is very closely linked to that. We have all the isotope knowledge, but it doesn't transfer. And what's the service that we get from that part of the flow that's from ice or snow? And you have shown the pie graphs, but what's the service translation of which part of the pie? If we had that on a table, then people could gather around the table and say, okay, well, we want this here. And then we can engineer or policy develop the solutions to how do we address the changing services with green or gray infrastructure or policies or financial solutions or insurance or what.
Just to say, to pick up on that, what Johannes is saying, the ecosystem service concept became, popular in a way, because through that we were able to put a price, a value on the natural resource that is under threat, that is disappearing, that is jeopardized. And if you can put a value, if you can monetize in the natural capital or in ecosystem service, then it becomes something valuable to not only the community, but to the policymakers and even to the negotiators, if they know that they are sitting on a natural capital that has a monetary value. And if you, with the sound methodology, can actually do that work and show what the service and the associated value is of that service, that goes a long way, in pushing that kind of agenda. And something like that, I think, would be helpful to do.
I think one of the things that builds on that is a lot of the attribution evaluations point to, following a drought or a specific event, how much of it is attributed to climate change, right? And that's something that can be very powerful in being able to quantify the damages associated with that. And we need now start to have the data to be able to do the same thing with the glacier changes, right? We would expect a certain amount in a drought, we would expect a certain amount in a normal year, and we can actually quantify those differences to also help put a value on that. At the same time, I think we also have enough information to act right now. I mean, as we said, right, there's always more information that we can get, and it does vary by region. But even when you have enough information, it can be challenging to act. So I think bringing in local communities, bringing in local organizations that are going to support the planning and management of the resources is also a very important element that we need to connect to better in order to.
Maybe two additions. First, the increase of information is quite rapid, and that is impressive. I agree with you on the local information and indigenous knowledge and all that, but also remote sensing is kind of amazing. I was just 2 weeks ago in Uzbekistan, and then there's a program by the Swiss, and these are from ETH Zurich, the ice modelers, and they have a high-resolution snow product now for the Central Asia area, and it was quite impressive. Just the spatial resolution, of course, it looks beautiful and you kind of validate it, but they showed some data and it looks very promising. So I found that quite breathtaking, how quickly this information is there. And then the other point is, despite all the work that has been done, and in my previous role, I was working a bit in the Indus River basin. I found that a very interesting one. It starts in the western part of the Himalayas, and then it goes all the way down, and it's really hyper-arid at the mouth of the river and all the way into Pakistan. In between, there's a huge amount of irrigated agriculture. It's all depending on the snow and ice melting from there. And if you look at the very downstream part, there's still a lot of sugarcane, all fully irrigated. Huh? Tell me, are we above or before peak water there in that part? I think we are already behind. Behind temporarily. And how can you still have fully irrigated sugarcane in an area which kind of is a very inefficient use of water, but in an area which likely will have much less rain flow in the future now. But because it's not ice melt, it's also they change all the circulation patterns. So I'm sure you agree it's more complex to really estimate the water availability downstream. But still, society did not really, despite all this information, all this knowledge, still planting sugarcane because we have always done it like this, something very water inefficient. So tell me, how can we adapt better, and how do we get the messages out to the people who take the decisions about adapting? And agriculture is the biggest use, and in Pakistan, it's more than 80% of all water stores are agriculture. So that's the biggest saving possible.
Another question. What about hydropower? Because now hydropower is very dependent on many. Like if you come in Innsbruck, in Austria, you can see some kind of one showing how many percentage of electricity produced by hydropower would actually coming from Dushanbe melting. What in terms of the hydropower? Is there now constructing a lot of hydropower stations because they have more water because we are transition from ice to water? And what did you consider maybe some of you can add?
The hydropower is a lot of developments in Central Asia happening.
Now,
there's huge benefits for the region.
Just a bit more information.
Yeah, as you know, Tajikistan has we can only build hydropower stations because we cannot to stop washing. So it's going downstream. We can only just build a lot of hydropower stations, such as we are now building this Rohun hydropower station, which will end till finish, I think, 2030 as nationwide. So I think by creating a hydropower station is such as a green energy, so we can also producing for electricity to neighboring countries, such as China, Afghanistan, Pakistan. So
for now, you have this melted power, but later, when it will be less and less, you will need to construct reservoirs of power. So it will be. Do you have some country strategic plan for that for the next 5 years, or depending on the glacier melt retreats, or it's on development?
So we now have a strategic plan for glacier preservation, glacier protection, which is good for to cleaning the rivers and to be strong in how the rivers are not destroying the living around the river area. We also have some ones about how the melt, from the ice, from glaciers to the river, it becomes close because the sun is 93% of the mountains. So for us, it's most important to build more rivers for not infrastructure destroying infrastructure. Yeah, so to build some more, hydropower station. We also have another biggest hydropower station between Tajikistan and Afghanistan because the situation. So this is not starting yet, but we're planning now to build it. It's one of the largest hydropower stations in the world. So it is between Afghanistan and Tajikistan. So we are trying to build it and saying it should be one of the best. Not in the region.
Julia, can I just vulnerabilities that are in the energy sector or in the food sector downstream, those vulnerabilities they should be articulated in the NDCs. The countries are doing their NDCs, which is part of the official, procedure under the climate convention. And the NDC has a mitigation and an adaptation chapter. In the adaptation chapter, the vulnerabilities that come with the changing climate in the different sectors, be it agriculture, be it energy, can be transport, can be and should be articulated. Plus, countries and governments should articulate also in the NDC a plan on how to deal with these vulnerabilities. It would be interesting from a cryospheric type of viewpoint to look into NDCs of countries, glacier countries, let's say, and all countries that are downstream from glaciers, that have a high percentage of glacier runoff water, to look at those NDCs and see if that has found its way already into the NDCs. So then we can get a sense of whether the problem that we are talking about here has already made it into the realm of policy making, because that's where we want it to be ultimately.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are coming closer to the end, and before closer, I would like.
I just.
No question from audience.
I think you're so right, because across from us is the NDC part. We should just all walk over.
Because we cannot see from the
We have some messages as well there.
Yes, about the messages. At the end of the panel and our event, I would like to ask you to give one take-home message, but in a positive way. It's focused because we discussed mostly how it's affecting and decreasing, but we got one positive aspect. But there are some areas constructive. It's a mass of Glacier is developing. But can you give one take-home messages for our auditory online or related to cryosphere in downstream effect and transition from ice to water? Each of you.
One sentence.
Take home.
One sentence.
Maybe 2 sentences, 3 minutes, because we have 10 minutes.
For me it is this, what I perceive as the cryo system services. We need to understand what we get from it, and then we can value it, and then we can engage people in a positive way.
I'd say we have enough information to act, and we know that if we do act, if we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, we can save a lot of the glaciers, and we can help support a more robust system downstream moving forward. Our actions can have a big impact.
In Austria, for example, they're covering Glacier with the protection of Glacier. They're not covering, I think it's already now because it's not so efficient. But what do you think about those measures to cover glaciers?
To cover glaciers,
Yeah.
like geoengineering.
Yeah, they're doing in Austria for the last 10 years, but I think last 2 years they didn't do it because it's too expensive.
Yeah, they're expensive. They're incredibly hard to scale. There's all sorts of issues with the geoengineering on glaciers. The best thing that we can do for them is just to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions.
Exactly. Stabilize the climate instead of putting plastic on.
Yeah, plastic coverage.
Crazy. Sorry. I think my message, because we talk about fully monitored areas and a lot of upstream downstream interdependencies, I think we all said that in different words, I guess. So the message would be something like in the Twitter, you always have 140 sites or something. the critical importance about regional cooperation, because of this sharing of data and the upstream downstream interdependencies and so on. So the critical importance of regional cooperation to tackle these challenges.
So maybe we can enhance regional cooperation to get more data available for them to make decisions.
And the little data we have, we need to share. And
Yes, for us, it's also
that's what comes with it. Yeah.
we have the same problem as of hydrology, for example, data are not shared, maybe they're just maybe not exist, maybe already disappearing. Sometimes people move one organization to another also. Thank you for this point.
From my side, glaciers are visually very impactful. The pictures or the videos that you can see even here in this pavilion, it draws attention, and that is a positive thing, because we can use the visual depiction of glaciers and the melting of glaciers to draw attention to global warming. There's an opportunity there, I think, if we would exploit it a bit more, social media, for example, because it is almost emotionally impactful when you look at that, because of the beauty. And then these pictures, when you compare 40 years ago, in the same spot, it's the same picture today, it's very impactful. So let's use that focus on glaciers and cryosphere to communicate the issue of global warming.
Yeah, thank you. This is very nice for outreach materials, but maybe even in art and museums, because they had it, but they less and less now grown because maybe people cannot see it now with the current upper elevations. from Tajikistan, positive message from Tajikistan, please.
I think it should be very good if regional cooperation is number one, and especially Tajikistan should be also a piece of part of the main country, because as mentioned, that glaciers is melting so fast. So we also have air pollution, some from the Afghanistan side. So it's also the fact of the glaciers as well. So we need to more also focus in the air pollution sometimes, side of the melting some temperatures. It can be also impact to the glaciers as well. So I think so. After International Glacier Preservation in Dushanbe Conference, I think focusing in the glaciers, working in the field of glaciers should be the main topic as a global warming in the field of glaciers, because the glaciers, the water resources, the water drinking, after 10 years, I think that will be more expensive than the oil, 20 years. So there will be, it's my mind that there will be that the water will be the main resources. Then because water is life, without water we all die. We should have to focus on the protection of the glaciers. So we should have to focus to producing the water, the countries who don't have water, like to Saudi Arabia, to the African continents. So this is all starting from the working in this field. So I think most important thing to be united. So to be working in this field.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for this interesting discussion. I think we covered all possible aspects what we can. And yesterday in Encyclopedia, I read what 68% of all fresh water available on the world will be preserved in Glacier. So generally, if you are transiting from ice to water, we have maybe more water, but this is only water what we will have actually. So it's. I hope we have auditory online, and I hope people can also get message how it's important to consider this glacier storage and how it's transitioning. Maybe there is some more cases, but we will go later. The glacier is not melting, but the building their mass. So thank you very much for your time and presence here. I will read this you also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mal schnell weiter, weil wenn jemand Zeit hat, das schickt man mal nach.
Thank you very much.